Hello, I'm Tony Mangino from TC2, and this is Staying Connected, the podcast where we talk about what really matters to enterprise buyers navigating today's technology and sourcing decisions. I'm joined today by my colleague Julie Gardner from TC2, and we're talking about cloud communications sourcing, specifically CCaaS and UCaaS, and why enterprise customers need to compare offers and not just supplier stories. Now, on paper, these projects sound pretty straightforward. Move from legacy voice, contact center, or collaboration platforms to a modern cloud model. Improve the customer experience and support distributed employees. Make the environment easier to scale and manage. Sounds good, right? But here's the thing. Once the sourcing process starts, the proposals can get messy and fast.
Yes, and very fast at that. And it's usually not because the suppliers are being unclear on purpose. It's because each supplier is telling the story through its own product platform, its own commercial model, and its own delivery assumptions. Everyone says they can deliver the solution. Everyone's got a roadmap, and everyone has a demo that looks polished. But underneath that, the offers may be built on very different assumptions.
That's right. One supplier offer includes migration support, while another treats migration as a separate professional services work stream. One solution may bundle managed services, while another assumes the customer will handle more internally. One supplier includes certain features in its licensing model, while another may price them separately.
Exactly. And that's really where the sourcing discipline matters. The goal isn't just to collect proposals, the goal is to force comparability.
Let's stay with that word, comparability, because in cloud communications, I think that's where a lot of sourcing events either succeed or they start to unravel.
They do. CCaaS and UCaaS decisions affect costs. They affect user experience, customer experience, security, operations, and long term flexibility. These aren't simple software purchases, they're operating model decisions.
And Julie, that's the part that can get missed. A great demo doesn't tell you who's going to manage the platform after it goes live. And a low license price doesn't tell you whether AI features, API usage, recording, analytics, integrations, or support are even included. And a migration estimate doesn't tell you whether the supplier has really accounted for number porting, testing and training, legacy retirement of infrastructure, or global rollout complexity.
Right. And if those details aren't made explicit during sourcing, they will show up later. And as change occurs, operational gaps arise and there's internal frustration.
And by then, it's simply harder to unwind.
It's much harder. Once a preferred supplier is selected, the customer still has some leverage, but it's different. The competitive tension has changed. So the cleaner the process is before selection, the better the outcome tends to be.
Let's talk specifically about where these offers get hard to compare. Licensing feels like the obvious place to start.
It is, but licensing is rarely just a price per user. Customers need to understand their user types, the feature bundles, minimum commitments, their ramp up rights over the term, the consumption based charges, the overage, including fair usage allotment rules, and how users can move between roles or business units.
And different user populations matter. A contact center agent, a supervisor, an executive, a field employee, and back office employee probably don't all need the same package.
Exactly. And if the sourcing process doesn't define those populations or personas clearly, suppliers will make their own assumptions, and those assumptions may make the proposal look better than it really is.
For CCaaS, scope can expand quickly. You start with routing and agent functionality, and before long, you're talking about workforce management, quality management, analytics, recording, AI agent assist, integrations, and customer journey data.
Right, absolutely. And some of those capabilities may be very valuable. That's not the issue. The issue is whether the customer knows what's required now, what's optional, what's included, and what creates that incremental cost.
UCaaS has its own version of this, of course, especially around voice.
Yes, the call modeling, number management, emergency calling, international requirements, devices, rooms, your legacy PBX retirement, and network readiness all matter. If voice is treated as an afterthought, the customer can end up with unexpected costs or implementation risk.
So your RFX can't just ask, can you provide CCaaS or UCaaS?
No, that question is perhaps way too broad.
and probably invites some slideware and a salesy answer.
Exactly. Your RFX has to make suppliers show their work.
Let's talk about that. What does show your work look like in practice?
Well, it means structured response templates, pricing workbooks, assumption disclosures, and responsibility matrices. Suppliers should have to identify what's included, what's excluded, what's optional, what depends on a third party, and what will be priced later.
In my experience, that responsibility matrix is a big one because in these deals, the customer isn't just buying technology, they're deciding who does the work.
That's right. Who handles the administration? Who manages incidents and supports integrations? Who owns the reporting? Who's going to coordinate with the carriers? And who handles platform changes or manages escalations? The answer to all of these questions matter.
And the we'll figure it out later is not really an answer.
No, if anything, that is a warning sign.
Julie, migration scope is another place where two proposals can sound similar but mean very different things. Discovery, design, migration planning, testing, number porting, training, cutover support, these are not minor details.
They're not. And two suppliers can both say implementation is included, and they can mean completely different things. One may be offering a full migration work stream, and another may be offering basic platform configurations and expecting you, the customer, to carry a lot of that load.
And if the customer doesn't catch that early, the more enticing proposal may not actually be the better deal.
Exactly.
And it's the same story with managed services. Some enterprises want the supplier to run the platform day to day. Some want a lighter support model. Some want a hybrid model. But if the operating model isn't defined in the process, the pricing comparison is just incomplete.
And that's really the key. A sourcing event shouldn't just answer which platform do we like, it should answer which solution can we operate at what cost, with what responsibilities, and under what commercial terms.
For listeners preparing for a CCaaS or UCaaS sourcing event, let's make this practical. What should they answer before proposals come in?
Start with the basics. Who are the user populations? What use cases are in scope? Which features are required at launch? And which would be considered future state?
I'd also add migration. What do we expect the supplier to include? What work stays with the customer and what work might sit with a third party?
Yes, and for UCAS, how will voice be handled? Calling plans, numbers, emergency calling, international requirements, devices, rooms, and legacy platforms all need to be clear.
For CCaaS, customers should also ask how AI features are licensed, priced, and governed. There's a lot of interest in those capabilities right now, of course, but the commercial model can vary widely.
And they should ask what costs are usage based or subject to overages. Things like API usage, storing, recording, analytics, bots, and support tiers can all affect the long term cost profile.
So think about it this way. The customer needs to know not only what the platform costs on day one, but what makes the cost move over time.
Exactly. And that's where a lot of the risk sits.
And then there's the operating model. Who runs the platform after go live? If the customer assumes the supplier owns that work and the supplier assumes the customer owns it, everyone is going to have a bad day.
Yeah. And probably more than one.
Now, as the process moves towards selection, what does the final decision need to prove out?
Well, it needs to prove that the customer understands the full cost picture, the operating model, and the key risks. Not perfectly, because there's always going to be some unknowns, but clearly enough to make a defensible decision.
So it's not just supplier A has the best demo and slideware or supplier B has the lowest license cost.
Right. The decision should reflect licenses, usage, migration, professional services, managed services, if those are applicable, voice components, your integrations, the devices, support, service levels, future growth, and very importantly, your contract flexibility.
Yeah, that's a lot. And then the contract has to match that decision.
Yes, the pricing, the service scope, those migration responsibilities, the support obligations, the service levels, governance, change control, and your renewal terms all need to be captured clearly.
And this last mile here is often where value gets lost. The sourcing process can be strong, the negotiation can be strong, and then the final agreement slowly pulls things back towards supplier standard language.
Exactly. And if that happens, the customer may not get the deal that it thought it had negotiated.
So the goal here isn't just to pick a platform or a solution, it's to land a deal the enterprise can actually run.
That's exactly right.
The key takeaway is that cloud communication sourcing is not won by collecting impressive proposals. It's won by structuring the process so suppliers have to respond on equal footing. If the customer doesn't force comparability, the decision can become a contest of narratives. If the customer does force comparability, the process creates clear economics, better stakeholder alignment, stronger contract terms, and a more executable operating model. Julie, any final thoughts for today?
Yeah, CCaaS and UCaaS can create real value, but only if the deal reflects how the enterprise will actually use and operate the platform. The sourcing process should expose cost, scope, responsibility, and risk before the supplier is selected. That's how enterprise customers move from a good presentation to a good deal.
And I think that's a great place to leave it for today. To our listeners, if you'd like to discuss CCaaS, UCaaS, cloud communication sourcing, or how to structure a sourcing process that produces comparable offers, or if you'd like to discuss other technology strategy, sourcing, and cost reduction needs with Julie, me, or any of our TC2 and LB3 colleagues, please give us a call or shoot us an email. You can also stay current by subscribing to Staying Connected, by checking out our websites, and by following us on LinkedIn.